In the hushed stillness of a moonlit desert night, you, a lone traveler, navigate winding trails that disappear into the darkness. The air is thick with an uneasy silence, broken only by the soft crunch of gravel underfoot. Suddenly, a figure emerges from the shadows. A silhouette that seems to shift and contort unnaturally. Heart pounding, you freeze as the figure draws closer. Its eyes gleam with an unnatural luminescence, locking onto you with a chilling intensity. Panic surges as you realize the truth. You are face to face with a skinwalker, a creature of legend known for its ability to assume any form. With a guttural snarl, the hideous creature lunges forward, its form twisting and morphing into something grotesque and inhuman. Desperate, you stumble backward, fumbling for protection that feels futile against the supernatural threat. Just as all hope seems lost, a distant howl pierces the night, causing the skinwalker to hesitate. In that fleeting moment of hesitation, you turn and run, adrenaline fueling every stride. Behind you, the howls multiply, echoing through the desert as if warning the intruder to flee. Gasping for breath, you continue onward, haunted by the memory of those piercing eyes and the unsettling certainty that the skinwalker's presence will forever linger in your nightmares. You got away this time, but will you be so lucky next time? Welcome to Tales from the Graves, where shadows lurk and whispers echo.
Join us as we delve into the unknown, exploring tales of mystery, horror, and the supernatural.
Be prepared to journey into the darkness, where the line between reality and nightmare blurs.
I'm Jen.
And I'm Jess.
Together, we're the Grave Sisters, and we'll be your guides as we unearth the strange and unusual.
So find your flashlight, grab your shovel, and let's dig in.
The following podcast is rated for mature audiences.
It may contain graphic scenes of violence and explicit language that some may find disturbing.
Listener discretion is advised.
To Tales from the Graves podcast. Right now we are giving you episode 6.
6, baby!
We hope that you have enjoyed our episodes that we've done for you so far. We really, really do hope that you've enjoyed them. So let us continue with some of the spookiness down in the American Southwest. Are you ready for some of this, Jen?
Flesh pedestrians. Because you're not supposed to call them the SW word. Because that's supposed to invite them. Did you not know that?
Yes, and if you whistle out in the woods.
Spooky. So flesh pedestrians, that's what I'm going to be referring to them as.
Okay, well, sounds good. Let's start with a little bit of history. So deep in the heart of the American Southwest, those elusive beings from the Navajo folklore beckon with tales of shape-shifting and an ancient magic. So today we are going to peel back the layers of mystery surrounding those ambiguous figures known only as skinwalkers.
Flesh pedestrians.
That too. Together, we're going to dive into a couple of chilling encounters. We're going to be doing something a little different today. I'm not just going to be giving you some history about skinwalkers and what exactly they are. I'm actually going to be sharing some spooky stories involving skinwalkers for you today. Are you ready to get some spooks with some spooky stories?
Let's spook it up.
All right. So now, first we need to know exactly what a skinwalker is. So, according to Wikipedia, I quote, "In Navajo culture, a skinwalker is a type of harmful witch who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. The term is never used for healers." So, the word for skinwalker in the Navajo culture is, okay, I'm going to butcher this one, Yi-nald-lushi, which translates to by means of it, or it goes on all fours. So is one of the several types of skinwalkers within the Navajo beliefs. Wikipedia continues on saying that these witches are seen as the antithesis of Navajo values, performing malevolent ceremonies and using manipulative magic in stark contrast to the beneficial works of medicine people. The legend of skinwalkers is deeply embedded in Navajo tradition and rarely discussed with outsiders. They also say on Wikipedia that this reticence is partly due to cultural taboos and the lack of contextual understanding by non-Navajo people. So stories often depict skinwalkers using their powers for evil, and they are considered a source of fear and mystery within Navajo communities. Traditional accounts describe them as powerful sorcerers who, after engaging in various nefarious acts, gain the ability to transform into animals at will. Not many people outside the Navajo culture really understand exactly what a skinwalker is. I heard some stories and rumors over the years, but I never really got the full concept of what exactly it is. First things first, though, how to become a skinwalker. How do you become one? To become a skinwalker, you must sacrifice someone that is very near and dear to you in order to gain the power to shapeshift.
Yeah, usually it's like a family member, I think. You know, like your mother, your father, that kind of thing. That I've heard of that. I haven't heard it where it's like sacrificing children, but I assume that it would work that way as well.
Probably. I mean, as long as you love that person with everything you've got, yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do that.
Oh, like, God, no.
If I love someone, I don't know. I love my boyfriend sometimes.
Well, once you have completed that ritual, then you are brought to a group of others, like shamans, who teach you how to hone your newfound powers by using animal bones and skin. Once you have possession of the animal skin, then you can become them and run at like incredible speeds. You're amazingly agile, and you have all the abilities associated with the animals whose form that they have chosen at the time.
Oh my God. Sorry. You just like unlocked a memory for me.
You become one with the onesie.
Well, I mean, in a way, yes, I assume that is accurate. But, so I read a lot of Anita Blake novels, and it just kind of unlocked a memory in me because in one of them, they are dealing with, you know, some bad witches in this case who are finding were animals and skinning them while they're in their form. Yeah, so that they can become the bigger, badder versions of what they wanted to be. And I'm just like, oh, wow. It's like when they tried to do that to the Naga, but they're like, oh, my God, it's not a were animal, so screw this.
Okay, I've never read any of those books, but now I kind of want to.
They're really smutty.
Yes. Okay. But anyway, back to this. Okay. The best way to avoid a skinwalker is what you said and not talk about them.
Flesh pedestrian.
But we are not on Navajo land, and we aren't in the Navajo Nation, so we will be discussing them today. So to really put it into perspective, we are going to be doing something just a little bit different today, like I mentioned, and I'm going to tell you all a few stories about skinwalker encounters just to keep you up at night. So, all right, Jen, you ready to dig in?
Always.
Okay.
Spook me up.
All right. I've always been drawn to the desolate beauty of the American Southwest, with its wide open spaces and ancient mysteries hidden in the red rock canyons. But what I encountered one fateful night would forever change my perception of those vast, empty landscapes. It was late June when I set out on a solo hiking trip through the Navajo Nation in northeastern Arizona. Armed with nothing more than a backpack filled with essentials and a sense of wanderlust, I ventured into the heart of the desert. The sun beat down relentlessly as I followed a narrow trail that wound its way through towering sandstone formations and sparse vegetation. As evening approached, I found a secluded spot to pitch my tent near a small spring, its waters shimmering in the fading light. The air was still, heavy with the scent of sagebrush and juniper. I built a small fire, its crackling flames warded off the encroaching darkness. Or so I thought. Night fell swiftly, accompanied by an eerie silence that settled over the desert like a thick blanket. I sat by the fire, lost in the hypnotic dance of the flames when I first heard it. A faint, rustling in the brush beyond the glow of my campfire. Brushing it off as a desert critter, I continued to stoke the fire, hoping its warmth would dispel the unease creeping up my spine. But then, the rustling grew louder, closer. It was no longer the sound of a small animal scurrying through the underbrush. It was deliberate, purposeful. I strained my ears trying to make sense of the noise, when suddenly it stopped. Silence engulfed the desert once more, leaving me with a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. I stood slowly, my hand instinctively reaching for my hunting knife strapped to my belt. Heart pounding, I scanned the darkness beyond the fire's reach, searching for any sign of movement. That's when I saw it. A shadowy figure, crouched low among the junipers, its eyes gleaming with a malevolent light. My blood ran cold as recognition dawned on me. SkinWalker. The word echoed in my mind like a death knell. I had heard stories, whispered tales of ancient Navajo legends come to life, but I never truly believed. Until now. The creature before me was humanoid but twisted, its limbs elongated and its skin mottled with patches of fur. Its eyes burned with an otherworldly intensity, fixing me in place with a gaze that chilled me to the bone. I could sense its malevolence, a primal hunger that seemed to seep into the very fabric of the desert night. Fear gripped me like a vice, but I forced myself to stand my ground. I had heard that skinwalkers could be deterred by courage and strong will, though deep down, I wondered if I had any chance against such ancient evil. The creature spoke, or rather, it mimicked. Its voice was a grotesque imitation of human speech, twisted and warped. As it hissed, its words carrying on the wind like a sinister promise. I backed away slowly, never taking my eyes off the creature. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to flee into the safety of the night, but I knew that turning my back would be a fatal mistake. The skinwalker's form flickered in and out of my focus, as if struggling to maintain its disguise. With each step, the distance between us widened until finally I could no longer see the creature among the shadows. I kept moving, driven by my primal instinct to survive, to escape the grasp of that ancient evil. Hours passed before I dared to stop, my lungs burning and my legs trembling from exertion. I found a rocky outcrop overlooking the desert below and collapsed onto its rough surface, my mind just racing with fear and disbelief. Had I truly encountered a skinwalker? Or was it a trick of the desert night? A hallucination, born of exhaustion and fear? I tried to rationalize what happened, but deep down, I knew the truth. The encounter had been all too real. A brush with an ancient evil that still lurked in the shadows. Since that night, I've never ventured into the desert alone again. The memory of those glowing eyes and twisted form haunts my dreams. A reminder of the thin veil that separates our world from the realm of darkness and ancient magic. Some may dismiss this story as a tall tale, a product of an overactive imagination fueled by too many nights spent alone in the desert. But those who know the legends of the Navajo people understand the truth, that in the heart of the Southwest, among the whispering winds and silent canyons, lurks a darkness that defies explanation. And so, I share my story as a warning to those who dare to wander too far from the beaten path, to tread lightly and respect the ancient lands that hold secrets beyond comprehension. For in the shadows of the American Southwest, the spirits of the past still roam, waiting for the unwary traveler to stumble into their domain. So that's just to give you just a little bit of a taste of what skinwalkers could be capable of. What did you think about that one?
I feel like there's some inconsistencies. I feel like there's some stuff that's pulled from, like, the Wendigos.
Ooh, Wendigos. That'd be a good one to do, too.
Yeah, so I'm not as familiar with flesh pedestrians as I am the Wendigos. I know that Wendigos are people who are kind of like the Donner Party. They got stranded and had to resort to cannibalism, and they can live extended lives, supposedly, and things of that nature. They're super excellent hunters, and from what I can remember of it, they can mimic the last cries of their victims, basically.
Ooh.
Yeah, so a lot of people will be screaming, and, you know, it's in human nature. You're out there in the woods, you're like, oh my God, someone's dying, and you run towards it. And it's also said that if it sounds far away, it's close, but if it sounds close, it's actually far away. So I don't know about flesh pedestrians, how like vocalizations and anything works when they're transformed. I have seen, you know, those videos. There's this, God, I forget the creator, but he is Native American. He's indigenous. And he does these really great, funny videos where he's reacting to things that people have filmed. And one of them was this messed up looking deer, like extremely uncanny valley, because you're looking at it and you're like, oh, that's supposed to be a deer, but I'm pretty sure those legs are on backwards, and it's got this weird hump in the back, and it's also walking on two legs. That's my perception of a flesh pedestrian, is that it is an uncanny valley kind of situation where your brain is trying to make sense of it, but it can't because it doesn't fit. I am more interested now in looking into more of the lore.
I think you and I are going to fall into a skinwalker hole after we're done with this.
Yeah.
TikTok, here we go.
I'm more partial to Instagram, you know, which you should totally follow us on. Tales from the Graves pod. Right? That's what our thing is?
Yeah. All right.
Totally follow us there.
Well, let's go ahead and do another one, bestie.
It's so spooky in here.
All right. Let's settle in. Ravenswood Forest had always been a place of mystery and fear. Nestled in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, it was a dense, dark expanse of trees that seemed to swallow the light. The townsfolk of Brimstone Hollow avoided it at all costs, sharing whispered tales of strange noises and eerie sightings. Yet despite the warnings, a group of 4 friends decided to venture into the depths, lured by the promise of an unforgettable adventure.
So they're dumbasses.
Pretty much. Rachel, Mark, Susan, and Kevin had known each other since childhood. They are inseparable. Their bond forged through years of shared experiences. The idea to explore Ravenswood had been Kevin's, always the thrill seeker.
Damn it, Kevin.
I know.
We just know it's always Kevin.
Sorry, Kevins. Rachel, the skeptic, had initially resisted, but the combined enthusiasm of her friends wore her down. Peer pressure.
Yeah, don't give in to peer pressure, guys. Unless it's something real cool.
So now, as I stood at the forest's edge, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows through the trees, a sense of unease settled over them. Are we really going to do this? Rachel asked, her voice wavering slightly. Come on, Rach. Where's your sense of adventure? Kevin teased, flashing his trademark grin. We've talked about this for years. It's now or never. Susan, ever the optimist, nodded in agreement. Besides, it's just a forest. What's the worst that could happen? Mark, the quiet observer, remained silent, his eyes scanning the tree line. He had a bad feeling about this, but didn't want to be the one to go back out on his word. With a collective deep breath, they stepped into the forest. The deeper they went, the darker it became. The dense canopy above blocked out most of the sunlight, creating an almost twilight atmosphere. Strange noises echoed through the trees, rustling leaves, distant animal calls, and something else they couldn't quite identify. Did you hear that? Mark whispered, his voice tense. Hear what? Susan asked, trying to sound brave but failing. It sounded like a growl. Mark replied, his eyes darting around nervously. Probably just a coyote or something. Kevin said, though he didn't sound convinced. They pressed on, following a narrow, overgrown trail that wound deeper into the forest. As the sun...
I'm sorry, Kevin's like, it's probably just a coyote. I'm sorry. Those are things that are friend-shaped, but are not friends.
Yeah, don't pet that dog. Don't pet that dog!
No. Really? Really? I'm pretty sure a coyote could still bite my hand off, Kevin.
Yeah, stupid Kevin. Let's check it out, Kevin suggested.
God, son of a...
So reluctantly, the others followed. The air around them grew colder, and a sense of dread settled over them. Rachel's heart pounded in her chest as they approached the cabin. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Inside, the cabin was dark and musty, the air thick with the smell of decay. Broken furniture and debris littered the floor. As they explored, they found strange symbols carved into the walls.
Oh my God.
Symbols that none of them recognized. This place gives me the creeps, Susan muttered, hugging herself for warmth. We should go, Mark said, his voice trembling. Not yet, Kevin insisted.
Fucking Kevin.
His curiosity getting the better of him. Let's see what's upstairs.
I'm sorry, have they not seen The Evil Dead?
Apparently not.
This is happening in an alternate universe where the Evil Dead doesn't exist, where horror movies are not based off people like them.
Cabin in the woods.
Yeah.
So they climbed the rickety staircase, each step creaking ominously. On the second floor, they found a single room with a large ornate mirror hanging on the wall. The mirror's surface was covered in dust, obscuring their reflections. Kevin reached out to wipe the dust away, but his hand, as it touched the mirror, a chill ran down his spine. He jerked back, his eyes wide with fear. What was it? Rachel asked, her voice barely a whisper. I saw something, Kevin stammered. Something in the mirror. Before they could react, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the cabin, freezing them in place. It was coming from outside. They rushed downstairs and out into the clearing, where they met with a sight that made their blood run cold. A tall, gaunt figure stood at the edge of the clearing, its eyes glowing a sickly yellow in the fading light. Its skin was stretched tight over its bones, and its mouth was twisted into a grotesque grin. What the hell is that? Rachel gasped, her voice shaking. It's a SkinWalker, Mark said, his voice barely audible. My grandfather told me about them. They're shapeshifters, creatures of pure evil. The SkinWalker took a step towards them. They instinctively backed away. The air grew colder and the smell of decay intensified. We need to get out of here, Kevin said, his bravado gone. Now! They turned and ran, the SkinWalker close behind. Its movements were unnaturally fast, almost as if it were gliding across the ground. They could hear its ragged breathing, feel its malevolent presence closing in on them. Panic set in as they stumbled through the forest, branches clawing at their clothes and skin. The path that they had followed was gone, and they were hopelessly lost. The SkinWalker's laughter echoed through the trees, a chilling sound that filled them with dread. We can't outrun it! Susan cried, tears streaming down her face. What are we going to do? Mark stopped abruptly, turning his face to the creature. We have to fight it. It's the only way. Kevin and Rachel exchanged a fearful glance, but nodded in agreement. They couldn't keep running forever. Together they picked up branches and rocks, anything that they could use as weapons. The SkinWalker emerged from the shadows, its eyes fixed on them. It seemed to relish their fear, feeding off their terror with a guttural growl. It lunged at them. Mark swung his branch with all his might, striking the SkinWalker across the face. It barely flinched, its twisted grin widening. Kevin threw a rock, hitting it square in the chest, but the creature didn't even stagger. Susan and Rachel joined in, their makeshift weapons proving useless against the Skinwalker's supernatural strength. It swatted them aside with ease, sending them crashing to the ground. Desperation set in as they realized that they were no match for the creature. Mark's mind raced, trying to remember his grandfather's stories. We need Silver to kill it! But where would they find Silver in the middle of the forest? Rachel suddenly remembered the necklace she always wore, a gift from her grandmother. She tore it off and threw it to Mark. Mark caught the necklace and wrapped it around his fist. As the Skinwalker lunged at him, he punched it in the face and the silver, making contact with its skin. The creature let out an ear-piercing scream, smoke rising from the burn. It worked! Kevin shouted, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. They continued to attack the Skinwalker using the silver necklace to inflict more burns, which this sounds more like a werewolf to me, but the creature's movements grew sluggish, its strength waning. With one final desperate strike, Mark plunged the necklace into the Skinwalker's chest. The Skinwalker let out one final, agonizing scream before collapsing to the ground, its body dissolving into ash. The forest grew eerily silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. The friends stood in stunned silence, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. They had survived, but the experience had left them shaken to their core. Is it really dead? Susan asked, her voice barely a whisper. I think so, Mark replied, his voice hoarse. But we need to get out of here just in case. They retraced their steps, their movements slow and cautious. The forest no longer seemed as menacing, but the memory of the Skinwalker lingered. When they finally emerged from the trees, the first rays of dawn were breaking over the horizon. They made their way back to the Brimstone Hollow, their bodies and minds exhausted. The town folk were waiting for them, their faces etched with worry. When they saw the state of the group, they knew something terrible had happened. We ran into a Skinwalker, Mark explained, his voice trembling. But we killed it. It's over. The townsfolk exchanged uneasy glances. They knew the legends of Ravenswood Forest, but hearing a first-hand account was something else entirely. As the days turned into weeks, the friends tried to put the experience behind them, but the memory of that night haunted their dreams. They had faced true evil and survived, but it had left marks on them that they would never fade. Rachel, once a skeptic, became a believer. Kevin, the thrill-seeker, learned the true meaning of fear. Susan, the optimist, found a new appreciation for life, and Mark, the quiet observer, realized that some legends are rooted in reality. Ravenswood Forest remained off limits, the tales of its horror growing with each retelling. The friends never spoke of that night again, but they knew one thing was certain. They would never forget the curse of Ravenswood Forest.
So, was it Mark?
Mark was the brave one. He was the guy that...
Mark was not white.
No.
If
his grandfather
Yeah.
told him stories...
He has some indigenous blood in him, and his grandpappy told him well.
Yeah. The silver thing kind of threw me off, because I was like, isn't that like a werewolf myth? But then again, you never know what other kind of stories could tell. Now, Gravediggers, if you liked the way that we did this episode with the horror stories, let us know and we will do more. Just please tell your friends, family, coworkers, and anybody else that you know about our podcast. I will say that I did love reading scary stories. It was pretty stinking fun, and I would like to do more of them in the future. We also want to know what you all think, so keep listening, commenting, sharing, and rating. It really does help us out and lets us know where we need to go next. We love you all and appreciate every single one of you. But until next time, we'll talk to you later, Gravediggers. And we're just going to let this one rest. If you like what you heard, please feel free to follow, like, rate, and review Tales from the Graves podcast on your preferred listening platform.
We also would like to know what you think and what topic you suggest we unearth next. Email us at talesfromthegravespod@gmail.com or reach out to us at Tales from the Graves podcast on Instagram.
And if you have Discord, join us in the graveyard. The link is in our bio on our Instagram, as well as this listening platform. Thanks again, Gravediggers.